Hey everyone, Miss Wilkins here for OrchestraTube. This video is going to be about all things bass, and I'm really talking to the new orchestra director or even veteran orchestra directors who just want to know more about the bass, and maybe that's not your specialty. It's not my specialty either, but I did do an extensive amount of research on the bass, purchased a bass, and just have become a bass hobbyist. So I feel like I can give you a little bit of a head start if you really want some background on the bass. So a couple of things that I've found that have been really successful with my students with the bass. One is you want to get all of your bass players' quivers. Hopefully you can see that in the video. There's my quiver. I got those from just sharmusic.com. They were having a sale, and I got them for about $8 each. It was a little crazy. So I was able to get those pretty inexpensively, but it really just transforms how your basses can move throughout the classroom, can move throughout, you know, if you're going back and forth from an auditorium. It just provides a really handy place for that bow to go. And the kids already have so much to handle. My mindset with the bass is to minimize any problems as much as I can, minimize any difficulties with moving the instrument, setting it up. So a quiver is really instrumental. Another thing that's really, really handy is a tuner. Now, I'm a violist. This wasn't readily, apparent to me, but it's really hard to tune a bass in an orchestra setting with everyone else tuning. And because the strings are so low, it's almost nearly impossible. So I did a lot of bass boot camps, and one of the bassists from one of the major orchestras, of course I can never remember from where, I want to say either, was it Philadelphia? I can't remember. But one of the bassists, Micah Howard, and eventually I'll come up with his orchestra that he plays in. He has a bass app. It's called iBass. You can find it in the App Store. That's Apple. I'm sure there's an Android version. And he suggested this. This is a Korg tuner, and where he told me to get it was a bass website called talkbass.com. So this is one of the few. This is an electric bass tuner. A lot of these tuners, Snarks and all these other tuners, do not pick up the E string. So it's very important that you get a tuner that will register that E string consistently. So this is a Korg tuner. It's a little bit, it's probably about $25, but it's worth it if you can have a few of these in your classroom. If you can't, Korgs will do fine. Some other, you can ask your local shop what kind of tuners work really well for the bass. And then I give every bass player in my orchestra get some sort of tuner that sits on their instrument. They're the only people who do. I am. You'll see my other videos on tuning. I am a big proponent of every instrument being able to tune their own instrument themselves. So I do very little tuning, almost none, in my classes. And for a while I wasn't letting them do the pegs, and then I gave that up, and so I really don't do any tuning. So that really, I believe, is the goal, is for them to be able to tune themselves. So you've got that, you've got your quiver, you got this. Another thing I want to talk about, which is not here I don't have one right here for this video, but I do, every bass that I have in my classroom has a wheel. And the wheel is a replacement of, the end pin. We take the end pin out and we put in a wheel when we travel. This is super important for the kids. We do a lot of community and outreach concerts in the community, and if you want your bassists to arrive able to play, in other words, their arms aren't totally fatigued and their back is hurting, a wheel for the bass is just not that hard to do, and it provides an enormous amount of ease for students to transport a bass in and out of a car and then walking through a mall or somewhere where they have to take that instrument. So please consider the ease of moving the instrument when you're getting your bass sections set up, or you're moving into a new position and you're just taking an inventory of what's there. Moving on down, you can see that I've color coded this bass. I've gone through several iterations of colors. The main reason is to provide a visual sort of color by color, or note by colors, if you would like. It's easy so that when I'm demonstrating for a student, they can see where my hand is and they can just match that color. So I find that to be incredibly effective. It just speeds up my teaching enormously. And these are all, there's a specific color coding scheme. It's the G major scale. So if you start on G, A would be green, B would be blue, C is red, D is yellow, then we have E, and then F sharp, and then your harmonic is yellow again. So and that was just based on the colors that I had. So green was go, but it's just nice that kids get into that yellow for fourth position. C is going to be right here in red. So that gives us a reference point. All of my basses are color coded this way. They are coordinated with my cellos. And I believe I have, and you'll see on another video for the cellos, that I use the same colors for first position and third position, and I believe fourth position on cello, so that when I tell everyone to go to third position, well, they all go to the same color. So that was my thinking on that. Let's see. Yeah, so that's basically everything I wanted to tell you about sort of setting up and thinking about your bass players. Oh, I do have my high school students sit, as you see me sitting. I forgot about that. But I do enjoy having them come to me knowing how to stand. I believe it's incredibly important, and all the bass players, the professional bass players that I have met, have said that it's really important to do both. And if they have a choice, they prefer students to learn first standing, because standing is the hardest to learn how to do. I'm terrible at it. So that's why I love the seated position. But what they talk about with seated is that, you know, the stool is really like the shoulder rest for violin. It keeps the instrument from wandering around. It's not moving on you. So therefore, when we're shifting, we have greater accuracy because we're not trying to hit a moving target. So that's why you see me seated in all of these videos, and my bass players at East High School all play seated. But when we do have gigs and things where we can't bring the stools, or someone forgot a stool, we can just go right into standing mode. It's not perfect, but they are able to do it. So the versatility between standing and seated is really important for all bass players. There are some kids who will want to play standing, and if that's the case, fine, as long as their accuracy, they can maintain their accuracy. But I always provide them a stool, because, you know, if they're standing for an hour or so, that's more fatiguing on them as well. So even if people want to stand, the stool is really important to give them a break, so let their body just take a break from all of the weight of the instrument. Okay, I think that's all I wanted to say about setting up and thinking about your processes for the bass. Oh, one more thing I will say: when you're setting up your classroom, make sure that no one travels or walks through the bass section. That's really important to me. I have several doors in my classroom, and I keep the one nearest the bass section locked, because people will walk through the bass section. Bassists need an enormous amount of space, and if people are constantly stepping over them or moving their stuff, it just takes that much more energy from your body to get situated to play again. So please, please, please teach the other kids, don't walk through the bass section. If you see a bass player trying to get through a door, hold the door for them, help them out, because, you know, we want to show some love to our bass players, and we want them to stay playing the bass. We don't want them to give up or quit or play another instrument, because think about how your orchestra would sound without bass players. So that's just so important that we really show some bass players some love. And it's just the little things that helps them out, passing them music so they don't have to get up and travel across a room. You know, just not traveling through the section when other kids are looking for things. They just have to be, the other instruments have to be taught some bass etiquette. And that's just simple manners in orchestra class. Okay, I'm going to leave it here. Check out, I'm going to do some more videos coming up, so I'll see you in the next video on East High Orchestra Tube.